everyone. If I can please ask you to take your seats. Thank you for coming tonight, and welcome to the City of West Hollywood's WeHo Read series. We are so pleased to have you all here, and really pleased to present this book, Ivy Bottini, The Liberation of Ivy Bottini. Yes. So I want to do a few housekeeping items before we start. There's parking validation in the back. Book Soup is selling books. Please buy a copy of the book, and we'll have a book signing afterward. We'll bring a table out here, and you can line up, and Ivy and Judith will be happy to sign your book for you. We also have a reception, so please stick around. We have some iced tea, coffee, cookies, and other pastries. So please enjoy those afterward. If you've noticed, the scroll behind me has some of our upcoming WeHo Reads events, so please go to weho.org/WeHoReads. We've got a great event in February, a new book about Beverly Park. And then in March, we've got a couple books, one by Jacob Tobiah called Sissy, and then one with Andrew Rannells. And then April is National Poetry Month, which is great. But now I'd like to introduce our wonderful guest tonight, and thank you so much for being here. First, I'll start with Judith Branzburg, who is the biographer for Ivy. She has a PhD in English Lit. She is a professor emeritus for Pasadena City College, and she has published articles in such journals and publications as Lesbian Review of Books, The Contemporary African American Writers, and Radical Teacher. And then, of course, we have Ivy Bottini, who you all know, so I won't go into depth because we'll be talking a lot about her life. But I think that this, yes. Of course, she is our wonderful activist, feminist, gay and lesbian rights activist, and artist, actress, comedian, everything wonderful. So please welcome and give a warm round of applause for Ivy Bottini and Judith. Thank you.
And for all the work you did to put this together. I'd also like to thank the City of West Hollywood Arts Division and WeHo Reads for this program, as well as the co-sponsors. The city's Lesbian Speaker Series, One National Gay and Lesbian Archives, the LA LGBT Center, Senior Services, Hollywood Now, and the June Mazer Archives. And also I'd like to thank Book Soup for making books available this evening. What I thought I would do is just start talking a little bit about how the book came about. Then I'm going to do a kind of quick slideshow to give you a little bit of an overview of Ivy's life. She was born in 1926. She's 92 years old, in case you don't want to do the math yourself. So I actually didn't know Ivy very well in 2014 when we went to a Veteran Feminists of America conference, and I was having lunch with her and Lynn Balin and Jean Cordova, whom some of you know.
Let's hear it for Jean.
And anyway, so she told me that Al Schnupp and Ellen Lerner had interviewed her for a play, and they had left her with the transcripts of the play, the written transcripts with which she could do anything she wanted. And she wanted to write a memoir, but she was saying that she didn't know, she couldn't write a memoir, she wasn't a writer. She was also suffering from macular degeneration, so that made it very difficult. And somehow inspired by her life and being naive, I said, well, I'll try to put them in order. So I took the transcripts, I tried to put them in order to make some sense of all of these things, because as you know, or you will know, Ivy has been involved in so many things, and it's been a very long life of many different kinds of activities. So when I had problems, I would come over to Ivy's house or apartment, and I would ask her questions, and we would fill in things. I finally, after a number of years and interviews, was able to make kind of a narrative. I didn't interview anybody else. We just talked, and it was really her memories. Later on, my partner Amy and I would supplement with some historical information. For instance, what was the birth control situation at the time? Could women get credit? Legal kinds of things, and also things when something actually happened historically. So that was the kind of thing that we validated. So then Amy and I would come over and read the manuscript to Ivy, and then she would make further comments, tell more stories, many, many more stories than I could possibly fit in, and eventually we got this book as a result. So here we are today. So before I start, I just want to give a few credits. A lot of these photos are at the One Archives at USC, and there's actually going to be kind of a farewell party for Ivy on January 27th at the One Archives. We'll get to that later. But that's where Ivy's papers are at the One Archives at USC. Some other photos from patch.com, and the Now logo, which I don't know if you know this, but Ivy designed. So I'm just going to start running through these quickly, and you'll hear a little bit more. Okay. This is Ivy at 5 years old with her parents, 1932. Okay. This is 1933. Ivy's in first grade. Can you see her? She is in the front row, looking somewhat different from everybody else. When you read the book, you will come across this is 1938 in her confirmation dress with her mother. There's a section about this confirmation dress. It was particularly traumatic, so you'll read about that. By 1945, Ivy had formed a basketball team called the Royal M's. This was a time, by the way, she was in college, but there were no intercollegiate teams for women. In fact, when you played basketball, I don't know how many of you remember this, there were 6 people on a court, and women could only go 3 on one side and 3 on the other, and you couldn't cross the center because women were so delicate and they couldn't possibly be able to run around the whole court. And I think it
take 2 bounces.
You could 2 bounces or 3 bounces, right? So anyway, that was her team. You can see by Ivy's stature what a great basketball player she probably was, right?
That's why I was the coach.
Around that same time, she was a student at Pratt Institute in New York, a design student. So she's quite the pose there, don't you think? And here's a pose that goes along with it. This is in 1947, Ivy and her friends with her rifle. One of the things that her father taught her how to do was to shoot, and she became quite proficient at it. And the other thing her father taught her how to do was box, which I would say she's also quite proficient at. Okay. After she graduated, Ivy worked as a graphic artist. You can see her in the front of the photo. And so by 1952, she was married. Okay, so there's Ivy. You know, Ivy. Ivy was a good girl. I think that's something you have to understand. Ivy was a good girl. And so she was doing what she was supposed to do. So here she is. And here she is with Eddie. Eddie, her husband, Eddie Bottini.
A nice guy, really nice.
Nice guy. By 1953, Laura had come along, her daughter. And a little bit later, we have a picture in 1964 with Lisa. One of the things I like about this picture is that it takes place in her suburban home in Levittown, New York. If those of you who know what Levittown it was one of the first planned suburbs. It was kind of she was the quintessential suburban mother at the time. But boom, something happened, now came along. Remember I said that she was a graphic artist, and she designed this well-known logo. You probably know her for having designed other kinds of posters and T-shirts and different kinds of things like that you will see. And she actually made money by selling T-shirts at some different events. Now that she's in Now, she's beginning her activism. So here we have 1970, one of the most famous actions of the time. I don't know if you can see it, but hanging on the Statue of Liberty, it says "Women of the World Unite." And they were women standing on the ground, where you can see those are in the foreground of the picture. And then other women had gone up and hung this "Women of the World Unite" banner. By 1972, the ERA battle was well engaged, and so this was one of the actions having to do with the ERA battle. By 1975, Ivy was beginning her performing career. So this is her on stage with the many faces of women. An interesting pose, wouldn't you say? That might have been her trying to put in a Tampax, I'm not sure. That was one of her favorite things. I just wanted to show you this because it showed a lot of the things that Ivy was involved with. On the left, you can see that this is advertising her show, but on the right, it's advertising her consciousness-raising groups. And she facilitated a lot of consciousness-raising groups all through Southern California and New York. Life moves on. Ivy gets involved with the gay and lesbian liberation movements. This is a No on LaRouche rally, okay, or No Prop 64. That was the one that basically wanted to quarantine people with HIV. And here is actually Ivy selling her T-shirts at one of the events that she designed. Ivy, of course, had to make a living, so one of the things she did, she worked at the community Yellow Pages. So here she is with Jean Cordova and Len Leyland. And Jean Cordova founded the community Yellow Pages.
Yay, Jean!
So now we're getting to 1994. By this time, Ivy is hanging out with all the bigwigs, a bigwig herself. So in this picture, we have Robert Arthur, Ivy, Quentin Crisp, Morris Kite, and Patricia and L. Warren. She calls this the Supreme Court. Then in 1996, by this time they're the veteran feminists of America. We have Ivy with Kate Millett, Barbara Love, and T. Grace Atkinson. In 1998, just as a tribute to Ivy's performing career, this is her with Marion Jones and Mary Casey, who were the co-founders of the Ivy Theater, and the Ivy Theater was named after Ivy. And then rewards and awards started coming in. Here is in 2001, Ivy and Morris Kite as Grand Marshals of the Christopher Street West Parade. Ivy at her One Woman art show at the Village. And you can see a lot of her paintings, and she designed the T-shirt that she's wearing, and you can see the painting in the back that says, "I am." But she didn't end her career. In 2016, still active. This is a photo of Ivy with Lily Bernard at the End Rape SOL. I'm not sure what that means. But this was the campaign to end the statute of limitations, SOL, statute of limitations. Which through the efforts of Ivy and these other organizations, many other organizations, the governor signed, I think in 2017, I'm not positive. But she didn't stop either. In 2017, here she is performing the vagina monologues, I think right here, with her Alta Virgina, Karen Ayers. And finally, this is Ivy and I taking the first look at the book when it arrived. So, Ivy and I spent many hours just sort of sitting across from each other having a conversation, so I'm going to try to make that kind of like that, okay? So Ivy, for the first 40 years of your life, you pretty much lived according to the rules and expectations of society, even though you say that you've been falling in love with girls and women from a very young age. You got married, you had kids, you lived in the suburbs, so why did you get married? Why did you have kids? Why did you go on that route?
Well, I got married because all my girlfriends.
You
Anyway,
put a microphone in your hand, and this is what happens.
I want one designed like a flower. Anyway, I had 4 or 5 pals, females, and they were all starting to get married, married off and disappearing to the suburbs. And so finally, when Alma got married, she was the first, the last sane human being to do that. So I thought, well, okay, I guess it's my turn. And I met the boy, believe it or not, I met the boy across the street. I married the boy across the street. And I lucked out because he was a wonderful, wonderful husband and father. And one of my regrets in my life is that I hurt him very much when I left. And so that's why it was my turn.
So why didn't you, but you were falling in love with women, so why didn't you act on that?
Why did who what?
Why didn't you act on that?
Well, that's a very good question. Because I wasn't sure that I wasn't the only one in the world that felt this way. And I think many of you can attest to that. I ended up at some point going to a psychiatrist who kept falling asleep on me. I didn't think I was boring, but boy, he did. And whenever I would talk about my feelings, he would say, well, you love your husband, and yes, and, you love your children. I'd say, yes, very, very much. So there's your answer. And then he'd fall asleep. So what happened, I was more and more falling in love with this wonderful woman that worked at Newsday with me for a number of years, Dolores Alexander. But I wasn't sure if she was straight or gay. And since that is not in the vocabulary of what I was using, it was 30 years before I found out. She was confused. But she's gone now. So what do you want to know?
Well, I was asking why you hadn't been with women, but I guess I gathered that your answer was because it was really a very unusual thing. You weren't sure you were the only one. Also, that it would have was a very kind of dangerous thing to do, and in those days.
Well, I was so miserable that I don't think society could have done anything to me to make me feel worse. I was in agony, feeling this love for this woman and not being able to do anything about it. And the guilt of what I was feeling outside my marriage was just horrible. So there we are. So
Dolores Alexander, who's the woman you're talking about, also worked at Newsday with you. Newsday was a evening magazine on Long Island. Newspaper, I'm sorry.
Daily newspaper.
A daily newspaper.
Yes. Get your facts straight.
She introduced you to NOW. Do you want to tell that story, how that happened?
What'd I do?
She introduced you to NOW, National Organization of Women. Here you are living in the suburbs, you're married, you have 2 kids by this time, you have this job, and then along comes NOW. Dolores introduces you. Can you tell the story of how you got involved with that?
Yes, I can. I was supposed to, Dolores was a reporter, I was an art director. And I would go to work somewhere around 1 o'clock, and Dolores would come in, late morning, and we were supposed to have lunch. And I got a phone call. It was Dolores saying, I can't have lunch. I have to go to New York to interview some broad. That's how we spoke back there. And the broad turned out to be,
Betty Friedan.
thank you, Betty Friedan. How could I forget that? And I'm in the art department. Dolores comes back. She gets me on the telephone, and she said, "I'm back. Get in here." So, okay, I dropped everything. I ran down the hall. I went in the city room, and I said, "What do you want?" "What?" And she's madly typing away, and she picks up a paper, and she says, "Sign this." I said, "What is it?" She said, "Just sign it, just sign it." I would have signed anything. My firstborn, the deed to my house, bank account. I said, okay, so I signed it, and I said, "What did I just do?" She said, "You joined the National Organization for Women." So it wasn't some magnificent decision I made. I was just horny.
Well, so clearly something happened though, because you got captured by Now. This is 1966, by the way. So why did Now appeal to you?
Well,
Aside from the fact that you thought you might find lesbians there.
yes, that's one of the reasons. Dolores said to me shortly after she and I ended up, being the founders of the first chapter of Now, the very first chapter in the country, and it happened to be in New York City. And we did it in a month, and we were off and running, but what am I doing?
What about Now appealed to you?
I'm
Aside from the women.
I'm glad she pays attention. So anyway, what appealed to me was that for the first time in my life, I would be working, striving, trying to make things better for women, for me, for mothers who have always put themselves second or fourth or 22nd, and this was the focus. And that's why I loved being part of the movement.
So after a couple of years when you were involved in a lot of different kinds of activities, you developed what you called feminist consciousness raising. So can you explain why you thought at that point that was important to the movement?
Well, in New York City, excuse me, the lesbian community that was in New York and mostly down around the Village, they were doing they'd sit in a circle and they'd talk about how they felt as lesbians, what they faced in the world, but it was not, to my mind, it was not talking to the woman. It was talking to the problems. My consciousness raising was all about what goes on in here and here for women, straight, gay, it didn't matter. We all faced the same thing growing up, and it created us to expect certain things and to do certain things without even questioning it. And so I decided that I would put what I called feminist consciousness raising. And my poor steering committee, I tried the first one out on them, and I went through the whole series. I had 8 topics, and the first topic was, do women like other women? And that's where a lot of stuff bubbled up. Because we're not supposed to. We're supposed, because that's very threatening, we're supposed to just like the men.
This was 1968, and Ivy was still in the closet, as was virtually everybody else, so just to give it a little context.
Yeah. So, and then there was another topic called,
Oh, can we go back to that? What happened when you were talking about women? Did they decide women liked women or didn't like women, or?
They finally got around to really realizing that the women are in competition with each other because you gotta have a man. And so everybody, all the women are vying for some man, because that makes you a good citizen or whatever. And was that enough?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think part of
But I'm not done.
part of the thing about the consciousness raising too was at this time, if women, middle-class women, say, were having issues, they would go to the therapist and it would be their problem. And remember the Rolling Stones, Mother's Little Helper, pills and things like that. And part of this thing about consciousness raising was to teach women that it wasn't them. The problem wasn't with them, it was with the system. So it was a setup so that the women were fighting with each other for the men because they needed the men for the privilege. And so that really wasn't, the problem wasn't with the women, and they weren't enemies, because it was the system, then it extended into all other kinds of things.
They were anointed when they finally got married. Anyway.
So you were president of New York City Now in 1968, and then you ran for president again, but you left Now, okay? Why did you leave? You left New York City Now. Why did you leave New York? And then why did you come to Los Angeles?
Well, when I got forced out of Now, well, I have to tell them why they got so upset with me.
That's fine.
Okay. Anyway, so some of the topics, I already told you one, and then there was another topic about how men control in war. When the army takes a town, and now it's the Americans own that town, and it's been a bitter battle, and the troops are feeling really tough because they have won. And the officers, they don't want the troops to decide to turn on them for who knows what happened, but the men are feeling, I can do anything. So they say, go, take the town, rape the women, do what you want to get rid of that energy. That was an interesting topic. And there was another topic called, is lesbianism a feminist issue?
Actually, I think that was a separate panel that you sponsored.
But it was first in consciousness raising.
Okay.
And I thought Betty's head was going to blow off. So yeah, I got tired of seeing lesbians who had to stay in the closet, couples, they would come and walk in separately. You know, I did know who some of the couples were, and they'd walk in and sit on the different sides of the room just because they were afraid somebody might think they were lesbians.
So why did Betty Friedan not like lesbians?
Why did she not like what I did?
You said her head would explode.
Oh yeah, it spun around too. Because she felt, and the national board felt, that lesbians would kill the women's movement. And I wanted to say, we're there. This is no surprise. There's lots of us. We're in leadership positions now, but you just don't know it. So they were very unhappy with me. It was a panel of 14 women and myself. I was doing the moderating. And there were only 2 lesbians on that panel that I knew of or that would say anything. It was Barbara Love and her partner. And all the other women, I believe, at least at the time, were straight. But what happened was everybody thought everybody on the panel were lesbians. And that was just fascinating. And what next?
So how did that contribute to you leaving now?
Oh, that, yeah. Well, election time comes around, and I'm up to run another presidency. And I have a wonderful, wonderful steering committee. Rita Mae Brown's on it, and just an incredible steering committee. And then it was going to be, you could ballot vote if you wanted to. You didn't have to vote for more than 1 or 2 or 3 for different positions. And it became clear as people arrived, mostly women, really mostly, as they arrived for the meeting, because most of the time at elections or programs, we had 40 or 50 people. All of a sudden, this huge basement in this church on West 83rd Street was being overrun with all these human beings, mostly women. And I'm thinking, what? And then I realized that I always put an ad in the New York Times under things to do or whatever those headings are. And I listed the title, Is Lesbianism a Feminist Issue? And there had to be 300 people there.
Wait, got off the topic a little bit. We're talking about the election.
What?
You're going back to the election meeting when they packed the, when I asked you why you left now.
Yes.
So when they packed the meeting with all of these paper members.
Oh, yeah, these were paper members. I'd never seen probably 99.99% of them. And they came in and they had, there were a lot of new members who, I got a call from Barbara Love, as a matter of fact, and she said, Ivy, they're out to get you at the election. And I've got 30 lesbians who will go and sign up. We still have time, and watch your back. And then I said, probably one of the stupidest things I've ever said in my life. I said, no. No, you can't do that. That's not right, because these people, really, they don't care about the chapter. And then I said, I trust the membership. I mean, the most dumb words I ever spoke, because I ended up, and my steering committee, they started to resign, so all there was to vote for was me. But damn it, they had stacked that place so well that I lost by 7 votes to a person I never heard her name, never saw her again. And then, because she disappeared, they had to run the election again, which I was gone by that time. And Jackie Ceballos, who was so two-faced, she was the president. But I was on my way to California. Here I come.
So did you find things different in Los Angeles when you arrived?
Say it again?
Did you find things different in Los Angeles when you arrived?
Well, it was warmer.
Was it more welcoming? This, by the way, when Ivy was voted out of the presidency, was part of what was known as the Lesbian Purge. There were a lot of lesbian activists in the feminist movement or in NOW that were purged at the same time. They either left or were made so uncomfortable that they resigned.
Judith, would you consider using a hand mic or taking the mic off your jacket? We're getting a bit of an echo. You're not as clear as Ivy is. Thank you.
Okay, should we just switch back and forth?
We can do that. And then maybe control. Could you get another hand mic down here? They're very good, aren't they?
So how did you find California when you came here? I understand Los Angeles was more welcoming. Is that true?
Very much so. My then partner, Helen, we drove across country with my daughter Lisa, who's sitting there. Wave, Lisa! Woohoo! And Helen's daughter Valerie, and I was in a Volkswagen wagon, not a bus, but a regular wagon, and the trip was so hot. Going across the desert, and then we got to Texas. I thought I was going to die in Texas. One day I'm driving, and I see a sign that says, "Ice cold watermelon here." So I thought, oh God. So I made the turn, and they sat down at a table, and I ran in and I ordered 5 pieces. One each for us, and then the other one I smushed on my head. It was so good. So what we had really not thought about was that when we were going to arrive in LA, it would be the weekend for the National Conference of NOW. And there'd be people from all over the country, the chapters. And so Helen and I arrive, and we're walking into this big arena thing, and I can hear a lot of, talking, and we walk in, and I start walking, taking 2 or 3 steps down into the arena, and suddenly someone says, "There's Ivy!" And I'm thinking, and I don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden, everybody jumps to their feet, and they're applauding and saying, "All right, welcome, Ivy." And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? And then I found out they had just passed a motion that welcomed lesbians to NOW.
So obviously you became very involved in the feminist movement in Los Angeles, but along came the Briggs Amendment. Well, first you ended up working for the Gay Center, but then came the Briggs Amendment in 1978, is that right? Okay, thank you. And the Briggs Amendment, Briggs Initiative, for those of you who don't remember what it was I think his name was John Briggs, and his initiative basically would have banned all gay and lesbian teachers and anybody who supported them or taught anything in the schools that was at all positive about homosexuality. So Ivy got very involved in organizing that. But that was the first time. By that time, you had only been working with women. You were a well-known lesbian feminist around here. You had been performing. How did that go, that first interaction with men in the movement?
Do I have to? Well, it was really interesting because there was this little short guy, and he was such a misogynist, and I would go to meetings at Morris Kite's house, and it would be mostly men, maybe there'd be 2 or 3 of us, and he was always saying awful things about women, And I was trying to hold my temperature. And one meeting, I don't know, I can't remember what was going on, but all I remember, he said something, and the next thing I know, I am jumping over a couch, and I have him by the throat in a... And I remember thinking, don't kill him. And it was interesting because I think that tale of my doing that, all of a sudden the guys were really watching their language, and I was accepted. You know, before I had to kind of push my way through to anything that I was going to, and I was determined to keep going. And so that worked out well. And then I was hired on the Briggs Initiative campaign, and I was the South deputy, the deputy for the camp for Southern California. So I drove up and down Southern California, you know, making sure that the little pockets of activists, you know, in Santa Barbara and, you know, just all the states, all the way down to San Diego, not states, but towns. And we didn't know whether we would win or lose. The prognosis was we're going to lose 2-1. So we hired the Palladium for the vote that night, and we're all there. And the votes are coming in, and finally they come in, and we have won 2-1. And up to that time, I mainly worked with women. So working with men was very new. But I was so happy. And they were yelling, Ivy for mayor, Ivy for mayor. And I thought, I don't want to be mayor. So they said, come on, Ivy, say something. So I get up at the microphone and I say, I'll never be a separatist again. And that's how I've lived, from that point on, that's how I lived my life. I work with everybody. Everybody's valid. So
just a couple more questions before we open it up to everybody. This story is not in the book. It's not all about politics. It's also about your personal life. So in the book, you also write about trying to balance your political commitments with your personal relationships. Any insights to offer about that?
it's hard. You know, I've never really been too successful in relationships because the movement always comes first. And that doesn't make for a healthy foundation. And all my lovers cheated on me. Obviously, they should have. You know, the movement comes first. Oh God. Anyway, yeah, it's difficult when you're pretty much a full-time activist with the kind of commitment that I had, and few others have I met, you know, more. You spend a lot of time with other women that you're working with, and you start to admire. I mean, some of the women that I've worked with over my life are just brilliant and beautiful and loving and committed, and you don't fall in love with them, but you fall in, what's the other word I'm looking for? Infatuation. You know, you fall into infatuation, and it doesn't just happen once. The next issue, more infatuation, but a new person. It's very hard on the relationship. Because the women I was with, there were 3 main women, and I truly loved them. The first 2 relationships were short, but the third one was long, was with Dottie Wine. I think she's here tonight. And you know, I think I broke her heart more than once, but then she did the same thing to me, so we're even. Anyway, for me, the pain and sorrow of relationships breaking up, the pain healed faster because I was so involved in the movement. That was my life. I dreamed about it. I first thing I thought about in the morning and the last thing when I went to bed. So, I mean, it sounds like it's something you shouldn't do, but you should. You should, because you will find yourself. That's the best part, the best part.
Actually, I think that's a good place to end my questions. So we'd like to open it up to anyone in the audience who would like to ask questions.
We have a handheld mic here, so please raise your hand and I'll bring it to you. You have John Erickson here.
Hi, Ivy, it's John. Like, I answer every phone call when I call you. As the president of Hollywood Now, from the national organization, hi.
John Erskine, hi.
I come bearing good tidings from Hollywood Now, National Now, and everyone who are buying this book in bulk because it's a lot about our history. Could you talk more about where the women's movement is headed now that we have elected more women in office than ever before, and what hope you could give to all of us, and the fact that I'm going to have to fly to Florida to see you now? Just, you know, we'll get there, but I would just love to hear your thoughts on the future of feminism.
Well, the mid-March elections were incredible. It was so incredible, all that female energy, oh my God. And now we will have a whole, how many women are going to be vying for the presidency and running? You know, it's like, where the hell am I? It's something I never thought I would live to see. Never thought that. It's going to change Congress and change the Senate. The men are going to have to shape up. And if any of the men try any sexual, assault or talking, whatever they do, the women aren't going to stand for it. They're going to get kicked out. Well, at least out of the building. So I'm very, very, very excited about the women. That and the woman who said, what did she say that was so awful? Oh yeah, the F word. They don't want us to say it, but they want us to do it.
Ivy, this is Lindsay Horvath. It's a follow-up on John's question.
Hey, Lindsay.
Hi.
I endorsed you.
I know you did. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you, Ivy.
And I endorsed, yes,
Seppi and Lauren.
yes, right, go ahead.
So I loved when you first told me the story about the action you did with the Statue of Liberty and rolling out the banners. And so I was wondering if you'd be willing to share that story with us tonight.
How many people here have already heard it?
Not enough. Not enough people have heard this story. You have to tell it.
Okay. All right. But I'm going to give you the whole McGill. Okay. So after a New York Now meeting, we would most always, about 5 of us, Dolores, all the time Dolores, we would go to Remo's, the bar in the Village in New York. And we'd sit and we'd talk about the meeting and blah, blah, blah. But what I had missed, 2 lesbians, one was named Pat, and her partner, for the life of me, I cannot remember her name. They didn't show up, and they were always at the meetings. And I was concerned about them, but they weren't there. So, all right, we go on, and all of a sudden, this was a place, there was a long bar in the front and a restaurant in the back. I never saw another human being in the restaurant. I swear it was the mafia place. Probably was. I saw them once in their limousines and the black coats. So here they come, Pat and her partner. They're not just walking, they're striding in. And I think, uh-oh. So they come up to the table, and I said, where have you been? I was really getting worried about you. And Pat says, we're going to blow up a statue. Hello? What are you talking about? Well, every night when we go home, we drive by this statue, this 8-foot statue of this Greek god with his hair blowing in the wind and his bare chest and his loincloth and his rippling muscles in his legs. And we're going to blow it up because there is a serpent wound around his feet, and the fork of the serpent, the head, is around a woman's head. And we're going to blow it up. So I thought, oh God, I don't want them to go in jail because they're such good workers. So anyway, so I said, no, that's small stuff. If you want to do something big, let's do something else. And I said, what? And stupidly I said, we'll take over the Statue of Liberty. We really did, you know. Yeah, you've heard it several times. Okay. Oh, you saw pictures. Okay. So we finish drinking beer. We have another couple of pitchers. I drive home, go to bed, get up in the morning, go to the office. The phone rings. Hello? Hi, it's Pat. When's the meeting? I thought, oh, damn. So now I got to set up a meeting, but I was pretty sure I could short-circuit it and we wouldn't have to do this. Well, I was wrong. The meeting happened. They started forming committees. And when women form committees, it's over. So I was also organizing for the Women's March of over 50,000 women when we marched in New York on August 10th. No, we marched the 26th, August 26th, what was it? Thank you, I'm glad you're listening. 1970, thank you.
I think it was the 50th anniversary of women's suffrage.
Yeah, but
The women's strike for equality.
what was that?
The women's strike for equality.
That's it. Yes. So I'm so busy trying to organize for the march that I kind of let them go in their own direction. I check in, and we're still going to take over the Statue of Liberty. But the day comes, and we probably about 70 of us, maybe, I guess, I don't know. We go downtown, all the way downtown to the Battery. We get the ferries. We go over to the Statue of Liberty Island, and the women prepared this banner that they somehow cut it in pieces and wore it under their dress or their shirt or whatever, and they looked like they were pregnant. Brilliant! And we get over there, and the women with this strange bulge, they don't walk together. They kind of saunter over to the statue, and they go up to the top of the pedestal, and they somehow put this together, and they throw it over the railing, and it says, "Women of the world unite." And I thought, oh my God, we've done it, and we're going to go to jail.
Ivy, what were you doing in the meantime?
What?
What were you doing in the meantime?
Oh, I was keeping the women walking around and, playing guitars. In New York, they play guitars. And not we, they had written new lyrics to very popular songs. I can't think of, but it was all very political sound. And I'm making sure, because we have to keep moving. And so now the women that put the banner up, they're starting to stroll back. And I kind of turn around, but don't ask me why, and I kind of look back at Manhattan, and I see these 3 police boats heading our way. And everything stopped. No ferries were allowed to come while we were there. And years later, I actually talked to some people who said, we were there, we were on the ferry where they wouldn't let us land. So I finally realized I wasn't crazy. It did happen. So, okay, so I'm watching these 3 police boats, and then I see, and I go, oh my God, there's 2 fireboats, a little bit in back of them, but they're heading our way too. And they pull up, and the 3 police boats, they kind of come in like this, like a juggernaut thing. And I'm looking, thinking, I'm going to jail, I'm going to be in the pen. But the captain of the middle boat, the one that is pointed at us, he gets out and he's standing on the wharf and he's got this bullhorn. And he says, "What are you doing up there?" I thought it was pretty clear, but... So anyway, I yelled down, nothing, we're just sort of walking around, singing songs. And he says, "How much longer are you going to be?" And I can't believe this is going so well. So I yelled back, "Oh, we'll be about a half hour." And he says, "Okay, I'll be down here." And I said, "Okay, and I'll be up here." And we finished, and then we started to walk down the steps to leave. And suddenly the police boat, all 3 of them, turn on their sirens, whoop, 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 whoop. And the fire boats fire, each boat had a water cannon, and the water is going like this, and pew, pew, whoop, whoop, pew, pew. We had a party. If you get an idea, just do it. Thank you, Lindsay.
Ivy, it's Ty. Good to see you like everyone else. We can't wait for you to sign our books. Ivy, quick question. This was inspired by your personal life. What advice would you give your 30-year-old self knowing what you know now?
I probably, knowing how I felt about women, and I had felt that way my whole life. I fell in love with every gym teacher. I fell in love with my third grade Miss Barrett. She had very large breasts. All I wanted to do was put my head on one of them. And I fell in love with, as I said, my gym teachers. It didn't matter if there were 1, 2, or 3. I got them all. At an early age, I never, ever did not love women with the kind of feeling as I grew. I thought, I don't think everybody feels this way. So if I had it to do again, except for my children, who are, I know I hurt them very bad, and I'll leave this plane feeling regretful that I did that. But I probably would not have gotten married, because those kind of feelings, the strength of those feelings in your body, it isn't just a thought, it's consuming. You feel it through every single cell in your body. You should follow that, because eventually you will. And by that time, you could be in situations where a lot of people get hurt, including yourself.
Hi, Ivy. This is Seppi Shine.
Hey, Seppi, I endorsed you too.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Thank you. I'm the only... My question for you, as a lesbian, and I have a lot of admiration for you and what you've done for women and lesbians. What advice do you have for younger lesbians as far as what you, as a visionary, want for the women in the community? And how you want them involved?
Oh. To young, ow, my knee. Young activists, I'd say.
Lesbian activists.
Lesbian activist. I would probably say follow your heart. You know, follow your dreams, follow the things you want to do in life. And you know, you might decide to do something on Monday, and next Thursday something comes along. Be open to switching. Just because you go, that's going to be my life plan. Well, nah. That could change several times in your life. You know, you're young, you need to explore, you need to cry, and you need to laugh, and you need to develop a humor, some humor in your body, because that will save you. And just because you want to change what you thought was a plan, that's good. That's very, very good. You know, don't rush to settle down, however you do it, but just know that there are many doors you will have to walk through in order to find the one that you're supposed to walk through finally. So enjoy life. Just do it. Don't think about it. That's it.
Well, I think that's a great place to end. And if you have other questions, you should buy a copy of the book because they're all in there. Thank you.
All the answers are in it.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you, Ivy, for doing this. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you. Yes. So,
We're getting a standing ovation. We're getting a standing ovation.
the books are for sale in the lobby, and we're going to pull a table up here, and Ivy and Judith are going to sign books here.
Thank you very much.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful.